The 10 Miracle Keys to All Greatness. Your mind possesses vast reserves of power and knowledge within its domain. When we speak of mind in this study, we mean the totality of consciousness, which scientists call the conscious, the subconscious and superconscious minds. In metaphysics, we add another dimension to mind. This is the divine mind, which is often called cosmic mind or universal intelligence. It has been found that in psychological experiments where people were hypnotized, they possessed amazing knowledge that they did not have in their conscious states. Some people could speak foreign languages fluently, although they had never been abroad or studied such languages. Others knew how to play the piano or some other instrument. Still others knew about countries and strange places where they had never been. Where were these reserves of knowledge stored? If they were not in the conscious mind, then they must have resided in some other part of consciousness where the person was not even aware of them. One man who had a very poor mind for mathematics could add, subtract and multiply long lists of figures while in a state of hypnosis. Here are the 10 miracle keys to all greatness. In a study of metaphysics, we find that there are 10 keys that unlock the miracle super force of the mind. We shall study each of these keys in turn and see how to apply them to your own life. With these keys you can unlock doors of consciousness where the miracle super force resides. The key of imagination. Your destiny is forged in the workshop of your imagination. It is in his imagination that man can truly grow wings of the soul and soar above the limitations of mortal mind and become godlike in his dreams and aspirations. That which you can conceive you can achieve. The very act of picturing a condition you desire sets into motion certain super forces within your higher mind that begin to create the conditions imaged. Einstein gave the world a mathematical formula which perfectly states the metaphysical law for using creative imagination to materialize the destiny we desire. Einstein's formula is expressed mathematically as E equals mc squared. What this formula says is that energy and matter are convertible. Mental energy possesses its equivalent in matter and is as real as so-called material energy. All physical and material things are actually manifestations of energy. The energy in a thought produces its own materialization. An idea is as real and solid as a bridge or a skyscraper. The concept of love is as real and permanent as the sun or the earth. The fact that mental energy cannot be seen or felt does not argue that it has no existence. Let us examine this metaphysical concept further below. I have reduced it to a practical formula which utilizes the imagination as the energy-producing miracle force. It is dream, dare and do. What is your big dream in life? It is through your imagination that you must picture what I call your big dream of life. There can be no actual achievement of your dream. The daring and the doing of our metaphysical formula, until you first have the picture in your imagination of the things you want to attract in life. The dream stirs into action the miracle super forces of your higher mind, and the mental and spiritual energy that it sets into motion, externalizes in creative patterns. Do you dream of achieving some high goal in life? If you do, it must be specific and clear-cut, otherwise the super forces of your higher mind are not activated sufficiently to bring it into being. I remember in my first year in high school in biology class when we were studying the sprouting of plants, we were given home study work where we were told to plant bean seed and then watch them mature. I was so anxious to see the miracle of growth and evolution that I kept digging up the poor bean seed until it gave up in discouragement and died. The picture of the mature bean, the sprouts, the roots, the final edible vegetable inherent in the seed, were all there, in the invisible dimensions of time and space, waiting for the final creative pulsation in the soil, but the law of growth could never work when it was constantly disturbed. This same law applies to your life. In your imagination you plant the seed of the crop you wish to reap. The super forces of your higher mind are ready and waiting to mature the destiny you want, but you must hold the picture firmly in mind, then let the higher power mature your dream and externalize it into its physical and material equivalent. The second key, curiosity. It was curiosity that caused Columbus to sail the seas in search of new lands. If he had been satisfied with the popular belief that the earth was flat, he never would have embarked on his voyages of discovery. It was curiosity that caused the scientist Fleming to wonder why green mold on bread in a test tube killed germs. His curiosity led him to the discovery of the life-saving penicillin, which is called a miracle drug and which has saved the lives of millions of people. It was curiosity that led Galvani to experiment with his galvanic battery, from which so many inventions have come. Curiosity has been implanted in the consciousness of man for a specific purpose. This divine emotion makes him discontented with the world as it is and causes him to search for new ways to change things, to improve them and to give man greater comfort and luxury. The third key, knowledge. It is through the intellect that man rules the universe. The pen is mightier than the sword. Your miracle super forces of the mind are more easily motivated and released when you fortify yourself with knowledge. This does not mean that you must be a college graduate to succeed in life. Many great men have risen to high positions who did not have a formal education. Wisdom is very often an innate trait, and some of the great philosophers like Socrates and Plato founded their own schools. Henry Ford was not a college graduate, but he had innate wisdom. He absorbed knowledge sufficient for his purposes and succeeded in his chosen field. Bacon said, "For knowledge, too, is itself power." All knowledge begins with this precept by Socrates: know thyself. The fourth key, affirmative will. The miracle super forces of your mind are unlocked by this fourth key, affirmative will. Most people are buffeted by the forces of life. They vacillate back and forth between two possible courses of action, not knowing which to do until it is too late. They are very much like the mule which hesitated between two piles of hay, not knowing which to go to, and starved as a consequence of his vacillation. Affirmative will summons all the super forces of your conscious and subconscious minds into a positive, dynamic focal point which drives you towards your objective without hesitation or hindrance. There are two opposing forces in life, and man is constantly forced to make a choice between these two. There is the will to succeed and the will to fail. The will to be healthy and the will to be sick. The will to live and the will to die. The will to be rich and the will to remain poor. The will to happiness and the will to misery. The will to love and the will to hate. The will to good and the will to evil. The will to peace and the will to war. Man must choose his destiny. Man can choose his destiny. He is different from all other living creatures in that he has this power of choice. By exercising your affirmative will, you can select the events that make up your destiny, just as the artist chooses the scenes he will paint and the colors with which to paint those scenes. If he does not like what he painted, he cannot blame it on the scene he is copying but on himself for his own inability to accurately reproduce the scene from nature. There are two types of will in life also. They are 1. Passive will. 2. Affirmative will. The passive will can create mental images of success and riches but lacks the capacity to execute these images into reality. Many would-be millionaires daydream about having $1 million, but they lack the affirmative will to put their daydreams into motion. The fifth key, divine ego. Most people who fail in life do so because they are using the wrong type of ego power. They are so obsessed with excessive self-interest that they lose their perspective and ignore the rights and interests of others. Such people are called egotists. This type of egotism is destructive and causes people to dislike one. Do not misunderstand me, we need some ego, a great deal of self-interest for purposes of self-preservation, but in our metaphysical studies we convert this power of the psyche which consciously controls the impulses of the id, as it is called in psychology, into the divine ego. The changes in your personality and ego drive will be miraculous when you once institute this method of unlocking the miracle super forces of your mind. The sixth key, perseverance. Perseverance means the ability to continue doing something in spite of difficulties or opposition. Many times a person who wishes to succeed will stop making the effort because of the many obstacles that he has to face. If he persisted just a short time longer, in many cases, he would undoubtedly have won his goal. A miner in the Nevada desert had struck a vein of gold in his claim which brought him a few $1,000s and then petered out. The miner became discouraged and sold his equipment to a junk man for a few $100s. The new owner kept digging, and after a few hours he broke through a wall of stone where he hit a vein of gold that produced $40,000 worth of pure ore. That gold mine brought the new owner $5 million in the next few years. You may be on the verge of achieving your greatest success if you but persevere a little longer and do not give up. About 20 years ago I visited Lucille Ball on a set at RKO Studios in Hollywood. After lunch we had a photograph taken together and the young and radiantly beautiful star told me rather sadly, "This is my last day at RKO. My contract ends today and they are not renewing it." I expressed my surprise and regrets, but the irrepressible Lucille said, "Oh, don't worry about me. Someday I'll come back and buy the joint." A few years ago Lucille Ball returned to the studio that had fired her and paid about $15 million for the entire studio. Talk about miracles. This red-haired, talented young lady who went on to fame and fortune on television, was able to stir the miracle super forces of her mind by her amazing perseverance and never giving up, and by fulfilling the promise she made to herself in jest, to eventually buy the studio that had fired her. There is a powerful and stimulating force within your psyche which works miracles when you respond to the challenges of life with perseverance and courage. The seventh key, magnetic attraction. Magnetic attraction exists between all of the particles that make up the visible and invisible universe. It is this etheric flow of invisible substance which keeps our planets rotating in their orbits, the Earth and Moon around the Sun, and all the billions of other planets in outer space rotating around each other. without ever colliding or deviating from their orbital paths. In fact, this law of magnetic attraction, which Newton named gravity, is so accurate in its workings that we set our Earth clocks by the stars. We can predict to the minute where any given star in our solar system will be even 10 centuries from now. It was this tremendous power of magnetism which Jesus used to perform most of his miracles. By summoning up the reserves of life magnetism within the person's body and brain, the master metaphysician could heal the sick and even infuse new life into the dead. The eighth key, divine inspiration. Someone has said, inspiration helps man grow wings of the soul and rise above Earth's prison house. Divine inspiration raises man even higher into the realms of transcendental peace, beauty and joy. Anything that stimulates your mind emotionally to creative thoughts and actions can be said to be inspiring. Divine inspiration releases the miracle super forces of your higher mind to such an extent that you are given supernormal powers and energies that are unknown to the average person. All geniuses had this ability of charging their higher minds with divine inspiration and releasing a veritable flood of creative and inspiring ideas. In music, these great composers had this divine inspiration: Beethoven, Mozart, Handel, and Bach. In art, divine inspiration motivated such geniuses as Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, Rembrandt, and Raphael. In literature and poetry, divine inspiration was shown by Shakespeare, Dante, Milton, Homer, Byron, Keats, Wordsworth. In exploration and discovery, men like Marco Polo, Columbus, De Soto and Ponce de Leon undoubtedly had divine inspiration. In science, Newton, Pasteur, Galileo, Edison, Einstein, Fleming and Salk had divine inspiration. This is only a small list of the great ones of history who were motivated by divine inspiration. In every field of human endeavor there have been literally thousands of men and women who possess this form of inspiration in their creative works. The ninth key, dynamic action. The first law of the universe is the law of action. To stir the miracle response centers of your mind into creative patterns of thought, there must be dynamic action in your thinking first. Everyone has some form of action in his life, but the miracle working kind of action is known as dynamic action. Synonyms for dynamic are energetic, vigorous, forceful. The type of thought that reaches out into time and space and stirs creative forces into motion is dynamic thought. A dynamic thought is one that you hold persistently and that infuses your brain and body with the necessity for dynamic action. When Edison tried 10,000 times to find a substance for his electric light filament, an assistant said, "It's no use, Mr. Edison. You've tried 10,000 times and failed. You might as well give up." The great inventor, driven by some inner compulsion into a vortex of dynamic mental and physical action, replied, "Give up? Never. Now we know 10,000 things that won't work." His next experiment the following day proved successful. The 10th key, metaphysical divine love. Master metaphysician Jesus said, "A new commandment I give unto you, love ye one another." The old law had been an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, a law of revenge and hatred. Undoubtedly the profound changes civilization experienced after this law was released could be traced to this new philosophical concept of divine love. There are many different types of love. The most potent type of love for stirring the miracle super forces of your mind is divine love. The human soul searches throughout eternity for its divine counterpart, God. Our earthly experience is a constant quest for our physical mate, for purposes of procreation and carrying on the race. However, the soul has its hunger and its need also. It is for divine love, the divine romance in which man, in the generic sense, searches for his lost half, the God consciousness in a cosmic love that extends throughout eternity. When man once discovers this divine love, he becomes complete and fulfilled. The love of God transforms and transfigures all humanity into the radiant divine image of God himself.